So, I wanted to do a video showcasing some of the sounds I've got from just messing around with Kinetic Treats. Kinetic Treats is a software suite in the Complete Control library, and when I got my MK2 controller about a year ago, it was actually included in the freeware, and that's all I'm using. I'm not in the paid version or anything. So, a little background, the reason I invested in my keyboard is because it's capable of pretty much every sound imaginable. So, when it comes to making electronic music of any sort, it's kind of like the best tool out there. Um, I listen to bands like Nine Inch Nails, Tool, Angelic Process, and they've never distanced themselves from making electronic music, and that's something I wanted to keep alive in my own musical endeavors. And I had actually found it a few years ago when I first started researching MIDI keyboards in 2017, and just thought it had more features than I even needed. But when I started researching them again, it became like the most highly praised one, so I had to revisit it. And it actually took me a while to warm up to it, simply because a lot of the parameters within every patch are totally different. So, something may have a single filter, something may have eight things, 16, 24. Sometimes they sidecar effects where there's two effects going on and you're blending between the two. Um, Something may have a flanger, a phaser, a lo-fi, a synth. And not all of these parameters are set, from 1 to 10 or something like that. Something may be minus 167, plus 167, minus 16, plus 16. So from a very orderly person's perspective, it's kind of a nightmare to make sense of. And so what I've learned to do throughout Complete is to treat every patch as its own individual instrument, and instead of trying to make sense of the specifics within the patch. And that's a strategy that served me extraordinarily well. It's plugging in with headphones, it's tinkering around with every one of the dials just to understand what they affect, and it's all about building the muscle memory between you, the user, and the software itself. So that being said, sometimes after a night of exploring or kind of sculpting a specific sound, I'll go ahead and save it as a preset in the library, and I'll just to kind of bookmark my progress, and I'll come back to it the next night. And sometimes when I come back to it the next night, and it may be over the course of a week that I do that, but when it's coming back, sometimes instead of picking up where I left off, I'll just go ahead and start from scratch. I'll start from the ground up. And again, it's just kind of like reaffirming that muscle memory of like, okay, this does this other thing does this, affects this differently. Getting back to Kinetic Treats, this one really appealed to me right away. I mean, that whole like, cutesy doll, creepy toy aesthetic, I bought right into that. I thought that was fucking great. And the fact that it can be so dynamic. I mean, the fact that it can get really beautiful sounds as well as get like super creepy stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. This first one was messing with the glockenspiel. I wanted to see if I could get a toy piano sound out of it. The song Walter Whitman by John Common uses toy piano, and even Vermilion by Slipknot uses it. Those songs are completely different, but it's an awesome sound. It kind of sounds like a cross between like a wind chime and a typewriter. And I never knew what it was until I found one in the thrift store one day. Just a grungy beat up one. But I thought I'd do some research, and Native Instruments actually makes a fantastic toy piano plugin that you can buy. You can Google toy piano, and SoundCloud will pull up a whole bunch of amazing artists that have all used that same plugin. And they're really great, but it's just that same exact sound. So what's cool about Kinetic Treats is how unique it is. So creating a toy piano sound in here is going to produce something that's much more distinctive anyway. I was trying to go for something chimey and soft, and in the end it sort of reminded me of Christmas music or holiday bells or something. All that beautiful percussion. So this started in Toy Turntable, and this reminded me of some of the quiet, pensive keyboard stuff off of the Lucifer Rising soundtrack by Bobby Beausoleil. Back in the 70s, Jimmy Page was actually fired from doing that soundtrack, and the director hired Beausoleil instead. If you've never heard it, it's just some phenomenal guitar playing. And that was something that I was into back in late 2010, just right around when I became interested in the keyboard. So it's kind of near and dear to me. Okay, so this started in Electric Train Transformer 1. I named this one Slipknot-esque just because it reminded me of some of the segue stuff off Subliminal Verses, or maybe some of the really airy songs off of the Great Chapter. It's got some sub to it. Okay, this last one is messing around with that same patch, but I had sort of a Nadja Jam going on where I was building up the riff while I was tinkering around with the sounds. A lot of the Nadja stuff is done through the looper, so while the looper's going and they've got their hands free, they're messing around with their pedal boards. And I just use the sustain pedal in place of the looper as far as holding notes go. And I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video that I flipped the polarity of the foot switch. So basically, instead of pressing it to sustain, it's sustaining all the time, and then when you press it, it's basically acting like a kill switch. And that's what I've been using for all of these examples.